The moment my daughter stepped onto my $1 million porch with that fake, trembling smile, the same woman who once banished me from the family and told me I was dead weight, I knew my life would never be the same. And when I glanced at the security camera feed and saw the entire family standing behind her, clutching gift bags and wearing their Sunday best like a pack of desperate salespeople, I felt something electric snap inside me. 15 years. 15 years since they dragged my name through the mud. 15 years since they told the whole family I was toxic, manipulative, dangerous to the children. 15 years since they locked me out of every family event like I was some stray animal scratching at their door. 15 years since they made sure I had no home, no money, and no place to turn. And now they were standing on my doorstep. A doorstep made of imported Italian stone. A doorstep belonging to a home worth $1. 7 million, built with the same hands they once said were only good for causing trouble. My daughter had the audacity to whisper, "Mom, we need to talk," as if she hadn't personally led the charge to erase me from their lives. Behind her, my son avoided my gaze, the same son who didn't even show up when I was hospitalized all those years ago. And beside him, my daughter-in-law, the woman who engineered my exile, pretending not to choke on her own pride as she clutched a cheap bouquet like a peace offering. They shifted nervously on my porch, trying to look humble, but I could smell the desperation through the glass. They didn't come for reconciliation. They didn't come for healing. They didn't come because they loved me. No. They came because of the headlines. Because of the article in yesterday's local paper showcasing the miracle turnaround of a woman who rose from broken to millionaire, with a full-page photo of me standing proudly in front of this mansion. They thought they could just walk back into my life the way they walked out. But what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the woman standing on the other side of this door wasn't the desperate, powerless mother they banished 15 years ago. What they didn't know was that I'd soon expose everything they did, every lie they told, every secret they buried, and by the time this day was over, they would wish they had left me alone forever. Before I tell you what happened when the same people who banished me for 15 years showed up at my doorstep like long-lost saints, hit that subscribe button and tell me where you're watching from. Because what I'm about to share isn't just a story. It's a warning, a lesson, and a victory dance rolled into one. Let me take you back and show you exactly how a 65-year-old woman, a woman everyone counted out, discarded, erased, went from sleeping in a cramped, moldy room I could barely afford, to owning one of the most talked about homes in the entire county. Let me show you how a woman your family swore was hopeless, impossible, and unworthy of respect, became someone they could only approach with shaking hands and forced smiles. Let me show you how I went from having no food, no support, no voice, to building a life so powerful, so stable, and so unapologetically mine, that the same family who threw me away now stand at my front door like beggars hoping I'll save them. If you think you know what betrayal looks like, if you think you know what revenge through success feels like, you're about to learn. Because this story, it starts with humiliation, but it ends with triumph, so sweet it still tastes like honey. My name is Evelyn Moore, though most people just call me Miss Eve. At 65 years old, I've learned one truth the hard way. The people you sacrifice everything for are often the same people who will tear you apart without blinking. And, trust me, my family gave me plenty to prove. I wasn't always the woman standing behind a marble kitchen island in a $1 million home with floors that heat themselves and windows that stretch higher than the lies they once told about me. No. Before all this, I was just a mother trying to hold her family together after tragedy cracked us like glass. Before the banishment, before the lies, before the humiliation, I was the woman who cooked every holiday meal from scratch, who babysat grandkids at 5 a.m. so my children wouldn't be late for work, who loaned money I didn't have, who cleaned their homes when they were overwhelmed, who showed up every time, even when I was sick, tired, or grieving. But to them, all of that became worthless the moment I became inconvenient. My oldest daughter, Lena, always wanted control. Sharp tongue, sharp eyes, colder heart than she ever admitted. My youngest son, Caleb, followed whatever Lena said like he was afraid she'd stop loving him if he disagreed. And then there was the real poison in the well. Caleb's wife, Harper. A woman who could smile sweetly while twisting a dagger in your back. The architect of my exile. The one who whispered poison into both my children's ears until they believed the worst about their own mother. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we get to the day they toss me out like trash, you need to understand. I wasn't perfect. I wasn't rich. I wasn't powerful. I didn't have degrees or influence or prestige. I just had love, too much of it if you ask me. And in the wrong hands, love becomes a weapon used against you. At 65, I can say this without flinching. The people you call family can destroy you deeper than any stranger. And when they do, you don't just lose a home. You lose your identity, your roots, your place in the world. But the part they never expected, the part that still shocks them to this day, is what happens when the person they tried to bury learns how to rise. Oh, I rose. In ways they never imagined. In ways they still can't comprehend. And now that they were standing on my doorstep after 15 long years, pretending they suddenly cared again, I could see in their eyes that they realized something they never thought possible. I didn't just survive without them. I thrived. And today, they were going to learn exactly how. It happened on a Sunday. Funny how you remember the exact details of the day your life falls apart. The sun was bright, offensively bright, and I'd just finished setting a pot of stew on the stove for the family dinner we'd been having every week for the past 8 years. The house smelled like bay leaves and onions, and for a brief moment, I felt like life was finally settling again after the storm of losing my husband. I should have known peace never lasts long in my family. Lena walked in first. Her jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscles bouncing. Caleb followed, avoiding my eyes. But Harper walked in like she owned the place, her designer purse swinging, her face blank as stone. "Mom," Lena said stiffly, "we need to talk." Those 4 words. They always precede destruction. I wiped my hands on a towel. "What's wrong? Did I do something?" Harper snorted softly, the same condescending sound she always made when she thought I wasn't good enough. Lena crossed her arms. "This arrangement isn't working anymore." "Arrangement?" I echoed. Harper stepped forward, eyes cold as winter. "You being here. You inserting yourself. You hovering." Hovering? I'd spent the last 3 months helping them through childcare, cooking meals, and paying half the bills after Kayla got laid off. But apparently that now translated to hovering. Caleb finally spoke, barely above a whisper. "It's just too much, Mom." I blinked. "Too much? I cook, I clean, I watch the kids so you two can rest." "That's the problem." Harper cut in sharply. "They're confused about who's in charge. You undermine us." "Undermine you?" My voice cracked. "Because I told the kids to say please and thank you?" Lena's lips thinned. "We've talked it over. It's time for you to move out." It felt like the air left the room. Move out? As if I were a tenant overstaying my lease? Where am I supposed to go? I whispered. Harper shrugged. "That's not our problem." The same sentence that still echoes in my bones. "After everything I've done for you?" I asked, my voice trembling. "After I helped raise your kids? After?" "Stop making it about you," Lena snapped. "This is what's best for us." Harper folded her arms. "And for you." "For me?" I laughed breathlessly. "Throwing me out is what's best for me?" Lena glanced at Harper, not at me. My own daughter was waiting for her sister-in-law's approval. And when Harper nodded, Lena stepped aside and pointed to the hallway. My bags were already packed. My clothes. My photos. My belongings. My entire life shoved into 2 suitcases and a trash bag. "You packed my things?" My voice sounded foreign, hollow. "We wanted to make this easier," Caleb murmured. "Easier for them. Not for me." I steadied myself on the chair, feeling the floor tilt beneath my feet. You're really doing this? After everything? Lena looked away. Caleb stared at his shoes. Harper met my eyes head-on, victorious. Yes, she said simply. You need to leave. The words sliced through me like glass. I picked up the suitcases, hands trembling. I don't have anywhere to go. That's not our responsibility, Harper said again. I walked toward the door, every step heavier than the last. My daughter didn't hug me. My son didn't follow me. My grandchildren weren't allowed downstairs to say goodbye. I stepped onto the porch, the sunlight suddenly unbearably harsh. The door clicked shut behind me. I didn't look back, not because I was strong, but because I was shattered. And that was the last day I saw my family for 15 years. The first night after being thrown out felt like falling into a bottomless pit, except I could feel every inch of the drop. I dragged my suitcases down the cracked sidewalk, unsure where to go, what to do, or how to even breathe. The air smelled like car exhaust and wet concrete, nothing like the warm kitchen I'd stood in just an hour before. The stew I'd cooked was probably still simmering on the stove, the meal that was supposed to bring us together. Now it would be eaten without me, or thrown away, or fed to the dog. Funny how quickly the world forgets you exist. I ended up at a rundown motel off Route 19. The neon sign flickered like it was on life support, buzzing loudly in the cold air. The carpet smelled like old cigarettes and bleach. The room cost $39.99, which the clerk said with a little too much pride, like the price was a bargain and not a punch to the gut. I set my suitcases by the door and sat on the creaky bed, staring at the peeling wallpaper. A single tear slid down my cheek, followed by another, and then suddenly I was sobbing so hard my ribs hurt. I pressed a pillow to my face to muffle the sound. I didn't want the other motel guests hearing me break apart. At that moment, even the stiff motel towel felt like a luxury after being treated like trash. The next few days were a blur of humiliation. Day 2. I tried calling Lena. No answer. Tried Caleb. Straight to voicemail. Harper blocked me. I knew because the call didn't even ring. I walked around the city looking for work. Any work. But every manager looked at my age before looking at my resume. We'll call you. They never did. Day 3. My money began running out. I skipped dinner to save cash, drinking water from the rusty motel tap just to feel full. The motel clerk, an elderly man named Mr. Henry, noticed me sitting alone in the lobby, pretending to read magazines I couldn't concentrate on. He walked over and whispered, "Rough week." I let out a broken laugh. You could say that. Without asking further, he handed me a cup of weak coffee and placed a small pack of crackers on the table. No charge, he said softly. Everyone falls sometimes. Kindness is rare when you're broken. Sometimes a stranger's compassion cuts deeper than your family's betrayal. Day 5. I witnessed a family checking into the motel, kids laughing, parents arguing about luggage, and something inside me twisted painfully. I hadn't heard my grandchildren's voices in days, and Harper had already made it clear they wouldn't be seeing me again. That night, I curled up on the bed and clutched the only photo I managed to grab before leaving. My late husband and me, smiling on our 40th anniversary. His laugh froze in time, his warmth gone. "Help me," I whispered to the photo. I don't know what to do. Day 8. My clothes smelled like motel room air and desperation. I washed them in the sink using cheap bar soap, scrubbing until my hands went raw. I hung them around the room, shirts draped over chair backs, pants clipped to hangers hooked on the shower rod. For the first time in my life, I felt small, invisible. Day 10. Loneliness settled on me like dust, heavy, choking, impossible to shake off. I tried not to think about how my family was living their lives without me. How they probably laughed after I left. How Harper probably said something snide like, "Now we can finally breathe." But the silence in that motel room made thinking unavoidable. Day 12. I walked to a local job fair. No one wanted a woman my age. The employers were all young enough to be my grandchildren. One of them glanced at my application and said with a dismissive smile, "Have you thought about retiring?" "What would I retire on?" I asked. He shrugged and handed me a pamphlet for a senior services center. I threw it in the trash on my way out. Day 15. I stopped looking in mirrors. Every time I did, I saw a woman who had been thrown away by the people she birthed, raised, fed, protected, a woman who now had nothing left. The motel room's heater rattled like it was dying, and I wrapped myself in my thin jacket, pretending I wasn't shivering. It was during one of those cold nights, lying awake, staring at the ceiling stains, that I whispered to myself, "This can't be the end. It can't." I didn't know how. I didn't know when. But I knew I had to claw my way out of this pit. Because if life wasn't going to save me, I'd have to save myself. The change didn't come all at once. It never does. It arrived quietly, almost shyly, like sunlight slipping through a cracked curtain after weeks of rain. It started on a Tuesday morning. I was sitting in the motel lobby, clutching a cup of stale coffee and pretending to look busy so Mr. Henry wouldn't worry. My money was nearly gone. My options were disappearing faster than hope. I was one bad day away from sleeping on the streets. And then she walked in. A petite woman in her 50s, wearing an apron dusted with sawdust. Her hair was tied back in a messy bun, and her expression was the exact mix of frustration and exhaustion that only small business owners ever seem to have. She approached the front desk. "Henry," she said, sighing, "my assistant quit again. He lasted 3 days. 3. Henry chuckled. "Told you not to hire the young ones. They don't last." "Tell me about it," she muttered. Then she looked over at me. I lowered my gaze, embarrassed to be caught listening. "You staying here long?" she asked. I hesitated. I'm figuring things out." She nodded slowly, like she understood more than I said. "You looking for work?" My heart skipped. "Always," I replied. She extended her hand. "I'm Maria Torres. I run a thrift and restoration shop about a mile down the road. It's nothing fancy, but it keeps me fed. You any good with organizing? Cleaning? Basic shop help?" "Yes," I blurted out before I could overthink it. "Yes, I can do all of that." "Great," she said. "I can't pay much. Minimum wage to start. Just a few hours a day." It wasn't much, but it was something. For the first time in 2 weeks, the tightness in my chest loosened. "When do I start?" I asked. The shop was a narrow, cluttered, wonderful mess. Shelves of old lamps, mismatched chairs, dusty frames, forgotten jewelry, each piece worn, abandoned, unwanted. Almost poetic. Maria handed me a rag and a bucket. "Let's start simple," she said. "Dust, sweep, sort. Help me make sense of this chaos." And so I did. For 3 hours, I cleaned with a focus I didn't know I still had. Dust clouds swirled in the air like tiny storms, and my hands ached from scrubbing, but it felt good. Purposeful. Like maybe I still had value. When my shift ended, Maria pulled out her notebook. "You work hard," she said. "You'd be surprised how rare that is nowadays." I smiled, a genuine one for the first time in weeks. She counted out a few bills and placed them gently in my hand. My first paycheck. It wasn't much, just $48 after taxes for the first short shift. But the weight of that money in my palm felt like a lifeline. On my walk back to the motel, I stopped at a small bakery. I stared through the glass at a warm loaf of bread. It cost $3.50. For a moment, I considered turning away. Every dollar mattered. But then I thought about everything I'd lost and everything I had to rebuild. So I walked in and bought it. I hadn't tasted fresh bread in months. I tore off a piece right there on the sidewalk, warmth spreading through my fingers and my chest at the same time. And as ridiculous as it sounds, I cried. Not from sadness, from relief. It wasn't much, I whispered to myself, holding the bread close like a treasure. But it was mine. That night, lying on the stiff motel bed, my hands still smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and sawdust. For once, that scent didn't depress me. It meant I had worked. It meant I had earned. It meant I wasn't dead yet. And for the first time since being thrown out, I felt a spark, tiny, fragile, but real. Hope. My first real shift happened on a Thursday. Maria had left me in charge of tidying the back storage area, a cramped room filled floor to ceiling with abandoned items the shop couldn't sell. Most were damaged, faded, cracked, or forgotten by time. To anyone else, it was junk. To me, it looked strangely familiar. Discarded. Dismissed. Unwanted. Just like me. I stood there, staring at the mess, unsure where to begin. The air smelled like dust, old wood, and faint mildew. A window high above let in a sliver of sunlight that illuminated the chaos. And then I saw it. A wooden chair shoved into the corner. One leg broken, seat cracked, backrest faded. Neglected. Left behind. I didn't know what pulled me toward it, curiosity, instinct, or maybe that invisible thread of connection broken things feel toward each other. I knelt beside it and ran my fingers over the wood. It was dry, cold, but solid. The kind of solid that meant I'm not dead, just forgotten. A feeling I knew all too well. Maria walked by the door at that moment. Her eyes flicked toward me. Oh, that thing. Been thinking of tossing it out. No one wants a broken chair. I looked over my shoulder. Can I try something? She shrugged. Knock yourself out. It's headed for the dumpster anyway. She left me alone. I rolled up my sleeves. I didn't have tools. I didn't have experience. But I did have something. A pressure in my chest that demanded I bring that chair back to life. I sat on the dusty floor and began fiddling with the broken leg, trying to see how it fit. I tested the balance, shifted the angles, pressed gently on the joints. Something clicked in the chair and in my mind. It felt natural, familiar, like my hands remembered something my brain had long forgotten. I worked on that chair for an hour, improvising with whatever I could find, with glue, tape, leftover screws, clamps that barely held. When the leg felt steady, I cleaned the surface, rubbing away years of grime. The wood drank in the moisture like it had been waiting for attention. Then I found a tiny jar of furniture polish tucked on a shelf. I opened it and dipped my fingers in. The scent, warm, nutty, nostalgic, hit me like a memory. My father restoring old tables in our backyard when I was a kid. Me watching him, learning without realizing, absorbing every move he made. I rubbed the polish into the wood. Slowly, gently, with a kind of reverence. When Maria returned, she froze in the doorway. Wait, did you do that? I glanced up. I think so. She walked over, eyes wide. Evelyn, this doesn't look revived. It looks brand new. My cheeks warmed. I just cleaned it a bit. A bit. She laughed. It looks like it belongs in a boutique window. She ran her fingers over the smooth surface. You have a gift, she whispered. A real one. I shook my head. I just fixed it. No, she insisted. You brought it back to life. I didn't know it then, but that moment was the first spark of the empire I'd one day build. The first hint of the future they never believed I could have. The first sign that I wasn't just surviving, I was rising. But that wasn't the end. Over the next few weeks, I grew obsessed with the workshop. Every time a damaged item came in, a cracked table, a scratched dresser, a dented trunk, something in me lit up. I stayed late, polishing, repairing, sanding, rebuilding. I watched tutorials on the library computer. I practiced techniques using discarded scraps. Maria's shop became my sanctuary. People started noticing. One customer picked up a restored table and gasped. This can't be the same piece I dropped off. Another pointed at my corner of the shop. Who's doing all this work? It looks like magic. Maria beamed every time. That's Miss Eve. And the more I worked, the more I realized something profound. I was good at bringing broken things back to life. Tables, chairs, dressers, cabinets. Anything people gave up on, I revived. And the symbolism didn't escape me. My family threw me away like trash. But I wasn't trash. I was just waiting for someone, even if that someone was me, to recognize my value. It was in that dusty workshop, surrounded by forgotten items, that I discovered my superpower. I could transform what others saw as worthless into something extraordinary. And although I didn't know it yet, this talent would not only save my life, it would make me a millionaire. Talent can open a door, but discipline builds a whole house behind it. And once I discovered my gift, the climb began. It didn't start with money or luck or opportunity. It started with a choice, one cold morning in that dusty workshop when I looked at my cracked hands and realized, if I don't fight for myself, no one else will. Maria increased my hours. Customers requested me by name. People brought in furniture they had given up hope on. Each time I transformed a hopeless piece. A cracked dresser, a peeling nightstand, a splintered rocking chair. My confidence grew. Maria pulled me aside one evening as I locked the front door. You know, she said, leaning against the frame, you could make real money doing this for yourself. I shook my head. I don't have the tools, or the space, or the customers. You have talent, she corrected. Everything else can be built. Her words sat in my chest, warm and heavy. That night in my motel room, I wrote in a notebook. One day, I will open my own workshop. But right now, survival came first. Maria introduced me to Mr. Lawson, a retired master carpenter who lived a few blocks away. He was in his 70s, cranky as a kicked cat, but his hands were steady as steel when he worked. When he saw my restorations, he grunted. You've got raw instinct, he muttered. Rare thing. But instinct without technique is just luck. The next day, he showed up at the shop with an old toolbox. You want to learn? He asked. Come by my workshop. Every evening. No excuses. And so I did.
6 days a week.
Rain or shine. He taught me how to repair joints without damaging the frame, how to work with grain direction, how to blend stains until the wood looked untouched, how to smell the difference between rotting and aging wood, how to restore without erasing the soul of the piece. With every lesson, my skill sharpened. My hands became confident, deliberate, masterful. One evening, Mr. Lawson studied my finished work, a walnut dresser revived from ruin. He nodded once. You're ready. Ready for what? I didn't know. But hearing it felt like receiving a crown. With Mr. Lawson's nudging, I took a leap. I rented a tiny garage-sized workshop behind an old hardware store. It was barely affordable, $200 a month, but it was mine. I found second-hand tools at yard sales. I bought damaged furniture for pennies. I restored everything by hand. Maria let me put business cards at her counter. At first, I got one customer a week. Then 2. Then a furniture shop owner asked me to restore 10 chairs. Then a boutique requested a custom set. My name began to travel from mouth to mouth. People began saying, take it to Eve. She can fix anything. She makes old things look new again. She's a miracle worker. The city's small artisan community noticed me. They invited me to local markets. I sold out every time. For the first time in years, I wasn't invisible. I was valuable. Things accelerated. A lifestyle blogger visited my booth at a craft fair and wrote a glowing article titled, The Woman Who Gives Lost Furniture a Second Life. Within a week, I had 147 new inquiries. My garage workshop was bursting with orders. I hired a part-time college student to help sand and prep pieces. I officially registered my business, Evelyn's Revival Studio, because everything deserves a second chance. The phrase wasn't just about furniture. It was about me. Demand exploded beyond what I could handle. Boutiques, interior designers, real estate staging companies, hotels wanting custom pieces, collectors wanting restorations. I needed space. Tools, employees, a real facility. A business advisor at the local development center reviewed my books and said with a smile, You're not running a hobby anymore. This is a real company. You're ready for a loan. The bank approved a $90,000 small business loan. I cried when I signed the papers. Happy tears. Disbelief tears. Healing tears. I leased a 2,500 square foot workshop, hired 2 full-time workers, and bought professional restoration equipment. The grand opening drew in crowds. Local news covered it. Maria cried and hugged me so tight I thought I'd break. Mr. Lawson just grunted. "Took you long enough." But his eyes softened, pride hidden beneath the gruffness. Evelyn's revival studio became the talk of the county. Everyone wanted my work. I began earning more in a month than I used to make in an entire year. I cleared my debts. I upgraded my wardrobe. I started saving aggressively. And with every transformation, from a damaged dresser to a stunning showpiece, I rediscovered a piece of myself. Broken things weren't broken. They were waiting, just like I was. By now, I had dozens of clients, partnerships, and a waiting list months long. And that meant only one thing. It was time for the next chapter. A chapter my family would never see coming. A chapter they would choke on. Because soon, very soon, I would buy something so grand, so beautiful, so impossible, that the same people who threw me out would one day stand at the gates, shaking, desperate, humbled. They banished me,
Forgot me.
deleted me from the family. But life brought me back with interest. And the best part? I was just getting started. Success has a sound. For some people, it's applause. For others, it's money hitting their bank account. But for me, it was the echo of my footsteps across the marble floors of a home I never dreamed I'd one day own. It happened on a warm afternoon in early spring. I had just finished delivering a restored mahogany dining set to a high-end real estate staging company when the owner, a polished woman named Frances, said, "You know, I'm staging a property right now that you should really look at." I laughed. "I can barely afford new sneakers, Frances." She smiled knowingly. "Evelyn, trust me. Just come see it." She gave me the address. And later that evening, curiosity got the better of me. I drove up a winding hill lined with manicured lawns, stone gates, and homes so elegant they looked like movie sets. These weren't just houses, they were statements. Power, old money, legacy. At the very top sat the house she wanted me to see. A massive, 3-story colonial-style masterpiece with black iron railings, white pillars, and windows tall enough to kiss the sky. The landscaping looked like it had been painted, not grown. Blooming hydrangeas, sculpted hedges, a fountain that sparkled under the setting sun. I stepped inside and my breath caught. Open-concept living room with a fireplace carved from imported stone. A kitchen with marble counters, so smooth they looked unreal. A library with floor-to-ceiling shelves made of dark oak. A sunroom drenched in golden light. A workshop space in the back with perfect ventilation, large enough to run my entire business from home. It wasn't a house. It was a dream. Frances watched me take it all in. "You fit here," she said quietly. "More than the people who will try to buy it." I laughed. But she wasn't joking. The next morning I checked the listing. $1.7 million. I nearly choked on my coffee. Impossible. Ridiculous. And yet something deep inside whispered, "Why not you?" I sat at my kitchen table for hours running numbers, checking accounts, calculating costs. Years of saving, investing, working double shifts, selling out projects. It had all added up in ways I never bothered to imagine. For the first time, the life I wanted wasn't impossible. It was within reach. And the moment that realization landed, I felt something I hadn't felt since before my husband died. Freedom. True, terrifying, electrifying freedom. I made the call. "Frances," I said, heart pounding, "I want the house." She didn't even hesitate. "Come sign." The day I signed the paperwork, the sky was a perfect, unapologetic blue. The seller shook my hand. "Congrats," he said. "You look like someone who earned this." Earned. Not married into. Not inherited from parents. Not gifted by family. Not shared with anyone. Earned. I moved in that same weekend. And on the first night, I stood barefoot on the heated marble floors of my master bedroom, staring out the enormous window at the city lights below. My old motel room had been the size of this closet. I walked through every room slowly, touching the walls, tracing the edges of the staircase, feeling the weight of the silence. But it wasn't lonely anymore. It was peaceful, victorious, mine. Then, as I stepped onto the balcony, a breeze brushing against my face, a memory hit me so sharply I had to grip the railing. My daughter, years ago, sneering. People like us don't live in houses like that, Mom. Be realistic. Now, I lived in a home her entire family could only dream of stepping inside. I closed my eyes and whispered to myself, the same people who threw me out could only dream of living here. It wasn't revenge exactly, but it felt like justice. And little did I know, within just a few days, that justice would come knocking, literally, in the form of the family who banished me suddenly standing at my gate, uttering the words I never thought I'd hear. Mom, we need help. But I wasn't the woman they banished. Not anymore. This time, I would decide how the story ends. It happened on a Saturday morning, the kind of morning that feels too perfect to be interrupted by the past. I was standing in my new kitchen, letting the sunlight warm my face as I searched the cabinets for my favorite mug. The house was quiet, peaceful, a kind of peace I had earned inch by inch, bruise by bruise, year by year. Then the doorbell rang. A low, echoing chime that rolled through the entire mansion like a warning. At first, I ignored it. New home, new neighborhood, probably a delivery. But the second chime hit harder, longer, more urgent. I frowned and walked toward the foyer. The marble under my feet felt colder with each step, like the house knew what I was about to see. I tapped the security monitor and froze, standing at my front gate. The same gate that required a code they didn't have was the entire family I hadn't seen in 15 years. Lena, my oldest daughter, dressed in a fitted blazer 2 sizes too tight, looking like she was trying to impress someone important. Caleb, my son, pale and thin, his eyes swollen like he hadn't slept in days. And flanking them was Harper, the woman who orchestrated my banishment, wearing a designer coat and clutching her purse like her life depended on it. Behind her stood their 2 children, now teenagers I hardly recognized. A fake family portrait framed by my security camera. The same people who called me toxic. The same people who told the extended family I was unstable. The same people who turned their backs when I needed them most. Now standing on my property, after 15 years of silence. I felt my heart drop, then harden. I pressed the intercom. Yes, I said, my voice steady, controlled, deliberate. Lena stepped closer to the camera. Mom, it's me. Harper elbowed her sharply, mouthing something like smile. Lena forced one, but it looked more like she was swallowing glass. We wanted to stop by. To talk, Caleb added, shifting nervously. About everything. Everything? Oh, now it was everything. I didn't answer. I just stared at them through the screen, watching the panic begin to flicker in their eyes. The kids glanced around, impressed. Who wouldn't be? The manicured lawn, the towering windows, the long driveway lined with lights. This house made a statement before anyone even stepped inside. Harper cleared her throat. Evelyn, she said sweetly, the same sickening sweetness she used when she wanted something. I know things were complicated before, but we've all grown. We've all changed. We'd really like a chance to reconnect. Reconnect. As if she hadn't once called me a burden and dead weight. As if she hadn't been the one whispering in my children's ears, telling them I was holding them back. As if she hadn't slammed the door in my face the day they banished me. I folded my arms. And what brings you here now? I asked, my tone cool. 15 years later? The silence was immediate, thick, heavy, shameful. Then, as expected, Harper stepped into her role as spokesperson. Well, we saw the newspaper article. Ah, there it was. The article titled, Local Woman Builds Restoration Empire from Nothing, Now Owns One of the Most Luxurious Homes in the County. My picture had been on the front page, smiling in this very living room, So that's what dragged them out of hiding. Not love. Not regret. Not family. Success. I see, I said. And now you're interested in talking. Caleb swallowed hard.
Mom, please.
Can we come inside? No, I replied simply. Their faces fell all at once, like synchronized heartbreak. Except mine didn't break. Mine had been broken by them long ago.
Harper tried again.
We just want to make things right. Make things right? I echoed softly. Or make things easier for yourselves? She opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. Tell me why you're really here. Lena inhaled sharply, preparing to lie, but the teenager stepped forward first. Grandma, a soft voice said. I blinked. It was Arya, my granddaughter. She was almost grown now, tall, poised, with the same eyes her father had when he was little. I didn't know you, she said quietly. Not really, but I want to. Her brother nodded beside her. We didn't even know the truth until recently, he added. I stared. The truth? Lena shot them warning glances, but the kids ignored her. Mom and Dad always said you abandoned us, Arya whispered. That you moved away because you didn't want us around. My breath caught. My hands curled into fists. Abandoned them? They banished me, and then told the world I left them? That's not what happened, I said, my voice shaking with a mix of fury and heartbreak. We know, Arya said. We found some old messages, and the story didn't match. Harper coughed loudly, glaring daggers at her kids. Well, she said sharply, this isn't the place to get into all that. Let's just... Enough, I cut in. My voice echoed through the speaker, and all of them froze. 15 years of swallowed pain surged up like a wave. You didn't come here for reconciliation, I said calmly. You came here because you need something. What? No. Lena protested. We came to... Lena, I said slowly, you forget I raised you. Your left eyebrow twitches when you lie. Her eyebrow twitched. Silence fell over them like a blanket of shame. I took a long breath. Tell me the truth, I said, or leave. This time, Caleb cracked first. He stepped closer to the camera, shoulders shaking slightly. Mom, we're in trouble. A crack in the mask. What kind of trouble? I asked, though I already knew. He hesitated, then exhaled. We're losing the house. Lena's eyes filled with tears. Arya looked down. The boy kicked at the gravel. Harper clenched her jaw so tight I thought her teeth would crack. And we don't have anywhere to go, Caleb whispered. There it was. The truth. I leaned closer to the screen. How convenient, I murmured, that you've discovered family again, now that I have something you want. No one spoke. Not even Harper. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It wasn't healing. It was heavy with all the years they'd let me suffer alone. All the years they had told people I was crazy, dramatic, unstable. All the years they used my name as a cautionary tale. Now, they stood on my porch, asking for shelter from the woman they threw into the cold. And I wasn't done with them. Not by a long shot. Fine, I said finally. You can come inside. Their faces lit up. But understand something. I unlocked the gate. You're not entering this house as my family. I opened the door. You're entering as the people who banished me. And with that, I stepped aside. Letting them in wasn't forgiveness. It was an invitation to finally face everything they'd done. They entered slowly, like people stepping into a cathedral they knew they didn't deserve to be in. Their eyes darted around the foyer, the spiraling staircase, the chandelier dripping crystals like stars, the polished floors so shiny their reflections stared back at them. I watched them absorb it. Every detail, every luxury, every sign that I had risen higher than they ever expected. Harper's mouth hung open just a little too long. Lena blinked as if trying to accept that this wasn't a dream. Caleb looked ashamed, finally, but shame doesn't erase history. I motioned to the living room. Seat. They obeyed instantly. Funny. 15 years ago, They stood tall while throwing me out. Today, they sat quietly, like children waiting for discipline. I didn't sit. I remained standing, arms crossed, watching them squirm in silence. All right, I said. You came for truth. Let's clean it up. Caleb inhaled shakily. Mom, we know we made mistakes. Mistakes? I repeated, eyebrow raised. That's what we're calling it. Silence. Let's start with the first lie, I said. You told the family I abandoned you. Lena's lips thinned, but she stayed quiet. I continued. You told people I left voluntarily, that I packed my things and walked out, that I was emotionally unstable and creating tension. Arya looked horrified. Mom, she whispered. Harper interjected quickly. We didn't want people judging our private business. We were just trying to keep the peace. I laughed. A sharp, unkind laugh. Keep the peace? You banished me. That wasn't peace. That was cruelty. Lena wiped at her eyes. We didn't know what else to do. Tell the truth, I snapped. I walked to a drawer and pulled out a file, thick, overstuffed, heavy. I dropped it on the coffee table. Papers spilled out. What is that? Caleb asked. Proof, I said. Messages you forgot to delete. Copies of the accusations you sent to relatives. Screenshots from family group chats where you called me a parasite. Records of every lie you told to cover up what you did to me. Lena's face turned white. Harper's lips parted in shock. Caleb buried his face in his hands. And these, I added, pulling out a small stack of printouts, are the messages you sent the day you kicked me out. The ones you claimed you don't remember. The ones where you said, and I quote, Mom is becoming a problem. She's suffocating us. We need her out. Harper shot to her feet. That's out of context. I took a step closer.
No.
That's exactly the context. Arya's voice trembled. You told us Grandma left because she didn't want to be part of the family anymore. I turned to her gently. I never left you, sweetheart. I was removed. The boy spoke next. But why would they lie? I looked slowly at Lena and Harper. Ask them. Lena's eyes filled with tears again. We needed space.
No, interrupt.
You needed someone to blame. And I was convenient. Harper crossed her arms tightly. At the time, I felt like you were overstepping. You told them I hit you, I said sharply. The room froze. Harper's jaw clenched. That was a misunderstanding. You told them I hit you, I repeated, voice cold. You told Caleb I lashed out. You told Lena the same. You told the extended family I was violent.
Arya gasped.
That's not true, is it? I turned to her. Your grandmother has never raised a hand in her life. Not even to your father or aunt when they were toddlers throwing tantrums. I faced Harper again. You didn't misunderstand. You lied. Harper's voice was barely audible. I was overwhelmed. I didn't think it would go that far. Oh, but it did, I said. You used that lie to get rid of me because you didn't want me around anymore. Caleb looked like he might collapse. Mom, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. You believed her without asking me, I said. And then you helped pack my things. He started crying quietly, ashamed. But I didn't soften. Not yet. I reached into the file again and pulled out the final blow. A piece of paper folded in thirds, creased with age. My insurance records, I said. The ones you claimed you never touched. I handed it to Arya, not them. The death benefit from your grandfather, I explained. They told everyone I used it all. But I didn't. Someone else did. Arya opened the page and gasped. Dad, your name is on the withdrawals. Caleb looked up, horrified. What? That's not possible. It is, I said quietly. I found out years later. Harper opened a joint account with you behind my back. Harper stood frozen, her face blank with guilt. Caleb stared at her. You used Mom's money? I was protecting us. Harper snapped. We needed the money, and it wasn't yours. Caleb screamed. The entire house fell silent. Lena stared at Harper with betrayal twisting her face. The kids looked at their parents like they were strangers. I took a slow breath. "You didn't come here for forgiveness," I said, voice low, steady, unshakable. "You came here for money." No one argued. No one defended themselves. No one lied this time, because the truth had already gutted them. I straightened my posture, lifting my chin. And the truth is, I looked each of them in the eye, one by one. You were cruel. Not mistaken. Not confused. Cruel. And now, the consequences of that cruelty were standing before them. The silence that followed my final words was unlike anything I had ever heard from them. Not defensive. Not loud. Not filled with excuses or accusations. Just silence. A heavy, humbling silence. The kind that comes when truth finally forces itself into a room and refuses to be ignored. Lena wiped her cheeks with shaking hands. Caleb stared at the floor as though he wished it would open and swallow him. Harper. Well, Harper sat perfectly still. The mask she wore for years finally cracked straight down the center. Arya looked at me with wide, glassy eyes. "Grandma, we didn't know. We didn't know any of it." "I'm so sorry." Her brother nodded beside her. "We want to know you. For real this time." My heart squeezed, painfully, but beautifully. I motioned for them to stand. "Come here," I whispered. Both teenagers rushed into my arms like they'd been waiting their whole lives to do it. Their warmth, their trembling shoulders, their whispered apologies. It was more healing than any mansion, any check, any success could ever give me. Lena stood up next, hesitant. "Mom, I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want a chance to fix this." Caleb followed, voice cracking. "I'll do whatever it takes. I'll tell everyone the truth. I'll fix every lie. I held up a hand. "Stop." They froze. "You don't earn forgiveness with words," I said softly. "You earn it with change." Caleb swallowed hard. "What do we have to do?" I pointed toward the exit. "You will leave my house today." Their faces fell. Harper's most dramatically, of course. "You will go home and tell your children the full truth.
No shortcuts. No excuses.
No watered-down versions to make you look better."
Arya nodded vigorously. "Yes."
"Please do. You will apologize, publicly, to the family you lied to for years. You will stop blaming me for the fallout of your own decisions. You will fix your own financial disaster without asking me for a single cent." Harper opened her mouth to argue, but Lena shot her a warning glare for the first time in her life. And then, I finished. "If months pass, if you truly change, if you show growth, accountability, and honesty." I took a deep breath. "Then maybe we can talk about forgiveness." Caleb nodded slowly, tears streaming. "That's fair," he whispered. Harper looked like she had tasted poison. She gave a tight nod, unable to make eye contact. I walked to the front door and held it open. "You too," I said to the teenagers, "are welcome here anytime." They smiled, small, grateful, real. "Thank you, Grandma," Arya whispered, squeezing my hand. Caleb hesitated in the doorway. "Mom, thank you for letting us in today. You didn't have to." "No," I said softly. "I didn't." He nodded once, then joined his sister and children outside. Harper lingered last. Her face was tight with resentment, anger, shame, a cocktail she had likely never tasted until today. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked. "I never thought you'd be the one with everything." I smiled, not cruelly, not triumphantly, just truthfully. "That's because you never thought I was worth anything." She looked away, stung, and I closed the door gently, not in anger, but in peace. Arya and her brother stayed behind for the rest of the afternoon. We shared stories, food, laughter, the kind of warmth I had convinced myself I'd never feel again. They asked about the past. I told them the truth. They asked about my work. I showed them the workshop behind the house. They asked about the future. And for the first time in years, I felt excited to answer. As their ride pulled up the drive and I hugged them goodbye, Arya whispered, "We'll come back next weekend. We want to learn from you." I smiled, brushing a tear from her cheek. I have 15 years of grandmothering to catch up on. They drove off, waving through the window. I stood on my porch, the same porch where I had once stared at the family who destroyed me and now watched the family who might heal me. The breeze was soft. The sun dipped low behind the trees. And for the first time in decades, my heart felt free. Not because I got revenge. Not because I proved them wrong. Not because I built $1 million home from the ruins of my life. But because I understood something I never had before. Being discarded doesn't make you worthless. Sometimes it frees you. I stepped inside my home, my sanctuary, closed the door, and smiled. Some victory shout. Some scream. Some demand applause. But this one was quiet. And it was perfect. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and share your own story in the comments. Your voice matters.